ask the committee for nominations for vice chair, please.
This is Gordon. I'd nominate Eric.
Okay. Do I have a second from anyone?
I'll second.
Okay. Any other nominations? Okay. Seeing none, are there any objections to the nomination? Any abstain? Very good. Eric, you willing to accept?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Next is the role of secretary. Do we have any nominees for that, please?
Leslie Ann McGee had expressed interest in that role, so I'm going to go ahead and nominate her for the secretary role.
Okay. Do I have a second to that nomination?
Gordon,
I'll second
seconds.
that.
Okay. Do we have any other nominations for secretary? Okay, seeing none, do we have any objections to that nomination? Any abstain? Very good. We have a new secretary. The John Tuffy role as treasurer, can we have assuming Jill, he's willing to take that role on again. Do I have a nomination for that? Or is that an appointment actually?
That's an appointment.
Okay. Could I have a motion from the committee to appoint John to that role?
So moved. This is Eric.
Second by Ed, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, any objections or abstain? Seeing none, John retains that role. Assistant treasurer, if I could have nominations for that, please.
I'll nominate Mike again if he's willing to do it.
Sure, that's fine.
Second.
Okay, that was motioned and seconded. Any other nominations? Seeing none, any objections? Any abstain? Seeing none, thank you, Mike. Legislative agent, I don't know if we want to tackle that one tonight or hold off. I don't know if people want to noodle on that one.
Paula, may I speak? It's Eric.
Sure. Yep.
Unless somebody knows that they want to fill that role, I would suggest that we table that for the next meeting.
Very good. The only other couple that Jill had suggested we fill tonight are the PAC representative and policy subcommittee.
I'll continue to do PAC if you want me to. I don't mind.
Wonderful.
Then I nominate Ed.
I'll second.
Very good. Any other nominations? Seeing none, any objections or abstained? Thank you, Ed. And I love the consistency you bring to that role as well. Thank you. Okay, policy subcommittee. I'm willing to stay on that one. I don't know who else would like to be part of that. And that was one that Jason sat on as well, so we might have some work to do, so that's why we're trying to fill that one.
Can I nominate Leslie Ann McGee? This is Eric again. She had expressed interest in being on policy.
Wonderful.
She is currently listed under policy along with you, Eric, and Ed is listed as the alternate.
Okay.
So we have one opening. If everyone wanted to continue, we still have an opening on policy.
There was
I would be willing to do policy if there's a spot open and it's needed, but I'm okay not doing it too. This is Laura.
Laura would love to have you.
Hi.
Thank you for that. Okay, I think that's all we have to fill this evening. If
Paula,
folks, yes.
is there any update on when the other member from Plimpton would be voted in by the Board of Selectmen?
Mike, I don't know if you have any update. I have not heard anything. I don't know if you've reached out at all. Mike?
Oh boy, we're having trouble tonight.
Hi, Bob. No, I haven't heard. But I will reach out to them. We're meeting on Monday too, so.
Okay, thank you for that.
Paula,
Yeah.
before we move on, though, I think we do need to potentially nominate the Negotiations and Employee Relations Subcommittee, because Jill, don't we have a meeting the end of this month?
For negotiations?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I think we do need to fill that subcommittee.
Okay, that's a good point. Having said that, I think consistency in the subcommittee would be very important if I could share that opinion.
Mhm.
Currently, Gordon, Ed, Eric, Chris, and Leslie Ann, although Leslie Ann came off of it,
Yes.
I'm there as an alternate. I guess.
Leslie Ann did say that she can get back on it, and she would be willing to be back on that negotiation subcommittee.
Okay, all right. Could I ask the other committee members for that subcommittee, would you be willing to stay on for this coming year? I'm getting
Actually,
it
I'd like to get off of it, actually, Paul.
I'm sorry?
I'd like to get off of it, actually.
You would like to get off of that, Ed?
Yep.
Okay,
Which is fine. I mean, that would leave Gordon, me, Chris, and Leslie Ann with 4 members, and I think that's probably more optimal so that we would not be a quorum.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
very good.
yeah. So thank you, Ed. Actually, that makes it easier for us, I think.
All right, perfect. Very good. All righty. What I would ask the committee to do at this point is, I'd like to move ahead one agenda item, and it's a very positive one. Elliot has joined us tonight to recognize 2 seniors from our class of 2020 who have achieved some high recognition. So if the committee does not mind, if I could have a motion to just bring this item forward. Okay, I think Eric is on mute, but I think he motioned for that.
I'll
did.
second.
Okay, very good. With that said, I'll turn it over to Elliot.
Hi, congratulations, Paula. Mom of 2 former CTE Students of the Year, 2 of our great automotive students, if you didn't know that history. So 2 of our students are on this call, and so I'm waving to Michaela Barrow and Kaylee McCullough. They're here tonight to participate, and so it's important that they know that, you know, beyond their families and their teachers, that we're their biggest cheering section. I think this is a friendly crowd, Kaylee and Michaela, so we're all proud of you, and that's why you're here tonight. So I have just a quick something to share on each of them so you know what their accomplishments are all about. 2 students, by the way, who are just awesome examples of what can be achieved as a CTE student at Silver Lake. They're both hardworking and very ambitious, for sure. So Michaela Barrow has had a very interesting year serving as the FFA chapter president. The year started for Michaela as cutting the ribbon on our brand new greenhouse, which was a really big deal coming out of last summer and heading into the school year. Our chapter, as you know, has a long history of providing leadership experience to students through agriculture education in the FFA. So Michaela this winter ran for a Massachusetts State FFA officer position. After a long nomination process, she was officially elected and sworn in as a Massachusetts FFA reporter for the next 2020-2021 year, a position that she'll hold beyond her high school tenure with us. She proudly additionally earned the Bay State Degree Award and is the first student elected from Silver Lake to a state office in well over a decade, and I think it's a lot more than 10 years actually, that we have had somebody serve in that kind of role for us. So I know her teachers and advisors, Mr. D'Angelo and Mr. Gaussman, are very proud of her. Fun to mention as well that Mr. D'Angelo was a state FFA officer as a high school kid himself, so I know that he's very proud of her. But Michaela, you've had quite a year, and we're proud of your accomplishments. And Kaylee, I see you there, yeah. Kaylee is representing Silver Lake as the CTE Student of the Year as a senior. This is an award presented through the Massachusetts Association of Vocational Administrators. So this is a quick little bio that showed in a program that even though her banquet was canceled, they printed it and sent a copy to her along with her awards that we presented to her a couple weeks ago. So Kaylee is a resident of Halifax, a student who has excelled in the field of culinary arts while at Silver Lake. She's demonstrated a commitment to both her culinary program major as well as her academic classes at the AP and honors course level. As a culinary student, Kaylee has been a Skills USA medalist in commercial baking. She's earned her ServSafe certification and participated as a student athlete on the track team. In her field, she has worked for Just Desserts in Bridgewater, served as a pastry cook for the Pelham House Resort in Dennisport, and she, before all this happened back in March, was working for Edaville Railroad's food service department. She's been recruited to work at the Newport Food and Wine Festival and the Mohican Sun Food and Wine Festival. She accepted very uniquely in her senior year, or she was accepted into the Johnson & Wales dual enrollment program. So she has completed her first full year of the pastry arts program at Johnson & Wales University. I know at least the first semester she had a 4.0 GPA. So she was doing great. I didn't hear the official second semester, but I'm sure she did great. So she has not only completed her senior year, but she's already a year in, she'll be entering her second year of college next year. Her pastry arts experience is further enhanced by an exemplary work ethic, an infectious positive attitude, and an award-winning smile. So we're proud of you. And I think I even saw one of the culinary teachers, Chef Bernardo's on too. So they've been behind you all the way, Kaylee. So proud of you both.
Thank you.
Nice job, ladies.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Elliot, and congratulations to both you young ladies. And I think on behalf of the committee, we wish you continued success. And you've certainly laid the groundwork for it. So I'm sure you've got so much more ahead of you to achieve. That's wonderful.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having it, everybody, Paula. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for joining us. It was important. Thank you, folks. Any other committee members want to say anything? It's a little
Hectic.
okay. Well, thank you, folks. Enjoy the rest of your summer, and wish you again all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Bye.
Okay, moving on in the agenda, public participation. Well, actually, I want to step back for one moment. Chris, did you have a subcommittee question?
I do, thank you. My question is directly to you, Paula, as our new chair. Are there any committees that you want to remove yourself from, so we should be aware of it going forward as we think where we might want to put ourselves into other committees? I see your name everywhere.
You know, that's a very good question. I think I would, and I appreciate you asking, I think I would like to stay on SAFER. And I think I would like to stay on policy if I could.
I was just asking if you had any preference to lighten the load, because as chair, probably get heavier.
Yep. No, I do appreciate that. Again, I think I would probably, you know what? Maybe I would stay on administrative review and forego policy, actually. So my preference would be administrative review and SAFER, if I could retain those. And we can talk about that a little bit more next time we meet. But thank you for asking that, Chris. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Okay, is there any public participation at this point? And
Paula, you're
Oh,
muted.
you're muted.
Yep, I just saw that, sorry. Is there any public participation at this point? And perhaps the best way to throw your hand up if you're in the public is through the chat. I'm not seeing any yet. Therefore, let's move on to approval of minutes. We have June 11th and June 16th minutes to approve. If I could have a motion, folks have looked at them.
Yeah, I'll motion that we approve the minutes of June 11th and June 16th.
Do I have a second?
Gordon seconds.
Okay. Any discussion or edits?
The only caveat is we have executive session also from the 11th, so we're not including that in this vote, correct?
Yeah, this would be great.
That has not been mailed to you, and it can, that's the only way I can send them out. I was waiting for a couple of more executive sessions before we do those.
I thought I saw it in here.
No, there's two, the June 11th actually had two times. 6 o'clock was the executive session one, which is just a short version because
Yep, got it.
executive session minutes. And then 7 o'clock was the other meeting.
Yep, I misread it.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, could, I need a roll call for these, right, Lisa?
Yes, please.
Okay. Eric,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Ed,
Yep.
Chris,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
and myself would be a yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, principals report. Michaela, you are first on the agenda tonight.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you. I'd also like to echo everyone's congratulations to both Michaela and Kaylee. We're so proud of both of them. I'm going to keep it short and sweet this evening for everybody. Lisa was kind enough to share out a copy of our school improvement plan with members of the committee. Began working on crafting it prior to COVID. Obviously, some time was cut short and we did our best remotely to come up with our final draft. We have all new school council members this year, so we really decided to just kind of build on previous year's plans with a focus on the following, which I'd like to highlight. The continued development and branding of our vision of the graduate. We'd like to continue to focus on intervention strategies for students who are at risk or disengaged. We want to continue our efforts to create a common written curriculum, so our work with UBD. Continue examining our current bell schedule and look for opportunities for collaboration for staff as well as students to, to improve learning experience for students, as well as provide some sort of academic support time for students. We also want to continue the implementation of safety policies and procedures, certainly after the incident that took place in February, for us to review and make sure that we have proper protocols in place for the upcoming school year. I don't know if anybody has any questions on our school improvement plan. Okay. As far as school updates go, we are in summer mode. It looks a little different this year, but we are hard at work with our regular maintenance of the building, as well as preparing the building for our anticipated opening at the start of next school year. At the beginning of the summer, several staff members joined together to create a social justice working group to examine inclusiveness at Silver Lake. A student group has also been developing over the summer, and I look forward to hearing more from both groups, and I anticipate that we will probably invite them to an upcoming school committee meeting just to share their work and their experiences. We had the successful distribution of caps and gowns and yearbooks for our seniors last week. It was a beautiful day. We had thunderstorms and pouring down rain, but we had several staff volunteers on hand. We had some canopies. We used the awning, and I think the seniors were just so excited to get their stuff. They didn't mind getting a little drenched. So able to collect textbooks back and senior obligations. So we are on track for our graduation ceremony coming up early next month. to collect underclassmen textbooks as well. We'll do that a little bit later this summer, once we've sort of gone through all the senior books and we've put better plans to take on, thousands of textbooks at once. We have some of our coordinators are attending a conference this summer through MSAA to address and really dive into closing any education gaps that may have developed during the school closing. Nicola Fanisiv and Kevin Sawyer will be attending, our math and ELA coordinator, and they have promised to bring back a wealth of information to share with our instructional leadership team at the high school and the middle school so that we can really put a focus on our students learning for next school year. And other than that, we just really look forward to working with central office and our staff to prepare for the next school year, whatever it may look like and whatever the state may throw our way. We've rolled up our sleeves and we're ready to do the work.
Wonderful, thank you.
For a vote on the school improvement plan changes, please.
I'll make a motion to accept the school improvement plan for the high school.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion on it? Okay, seeing none, I'll do a roll call for approval. Eric?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Gordon?
Yes.
And myself would be a yes as well. Thanks, Michaela.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, moving on to Jim.
Jim, you're muted.
So hello everyone. It's nice to be talking to everyone. We have a quick update for the middle school as well. The first thing is our school improvement plan, which I had submitted. Our school improvement plan revolves around the goals to help and improve our students academically, and it uses the data from the MCAS 2.0, and it uses the data from our surveys, which we put out to our student population, our faculty, and our parents. And through all that information and that feedback, we then derive our plan for improvement with our school council and in unison with our coordinators as well and our administrative staff. So the first three goals align just like that. We use the data to help and improve our literacy strategies, and then we have an action plan there in regards to how we can do that. Also our mathematics and our science. Then we also align with that our professional development on how to support our staff to help improve student achievement and student growth. And then finally, we look at our climate and culture of our building, and we look at ways to help student engagement, which again, when you have a positive climate and culture in the building, it improves attendance, helps diminish infractions, which then improves achievement and student growth. So those are the basis of our student improvement plan, our school improvement plan, and those are the pieces that are in there. So I guess just looking for feedback or a vote for the middle school school improvement plan.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Jim? Okay, seeing none from the committee, could I have a motion to accept the middle school improvement plan?
This is Gordon, so moved.
Okay, could I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm gonna roll call. Eric?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, no, don't worry.
I'm having trouble with the mobile app. I'm going to switch over though, so I will be on the computer soon.
Oh, no problem, thank you. Ed?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Gordon?
Yes.
And myself is a yes. Thank you. I will step back for a moment. Somebody from the public participation has asked if Michaela could just expand briefly on the social justice program. So Michaela, if I could just ask you just briefly expand on that a little bit for us.
Sure. So it's still in the early stages, but it's a branch of a group that actually began last February. Alex Frazier and Tony Pina were working with Student Council in our Best Buddies program, and they sort of developed a group known as like Inclusion Lives Here. And their work started to take a look at our school and really analyzing and determining, are all students included? Does everybody feel safe in our school? Does everybody feel a part of our culture? And so this is sort of stemming from that group. And the group, its intention is to focus on curriculum, programming, community outreach, and just really focus on making sure all of our students at Silver Lake Regional High School feel included. There's been a lot of conversations, certainly most recently in regards to, students of color in our school and ensuring that their experience in our building is a positive one.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Michaela.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on in the agenda to Christine, Director of Business Services.
Good evening, everybody. I kind of lost my place there for a moment. I'm sorry for the delay, but this evening you did receive a copy of our closeout very late. We were actually working on it until that very last moment, so hopefully it's as accurate as it can be. If we just quickly look at what you did receive is a closeout memorandum that kind of spells out where our budget began and where we ended. And if you turn to page 2, you'll see the final numbers. What happened is with our budget, we are closing out a balance of $349,439. That reflects all encumbrances through June 30th, 2020. As you know, we've had some disruptions this year. It's been quite a unique year, and it's kind of given our budget a run for its money, but we did survive. That's a good thing. There are some areas of surplus that I just wanted to mention. One of them is the substitute line. We didn't use all of those funds because we weren't in school. We've had some savings in transportation, both due to regular day and homeless transportation. So we had a savings there of $90,000. Utilities, we had a significant savings. Now, some of that is we've just had savings because we're trying to improve our buildings. We're working on projects to make them more sound and more ecologically sound. But we also had buildings that were not occupied for 3.5 months. So that has that's had a tremendous impact on us. One other area where I have a significant surplus is our insurance account. Now, last year as we made the change to employ paraprofessionals versus teachers under the grants, because that way we weren't paying into mass teachers. But what's happened because of that is we have more people employed by the grant than previously. Now they have more paras versus fewer teachers. More of those people are choosing health insurance, and the grant and revolving accounts reimburse our operating budget for the health insurance of their employees. So we have a significant savings there. And when I first discovered this was the end of last year. And by the time I had discovered it, this budget was already developed. So there wasn't enough time to make that change. But I did want to bring that to your attention because that's a strong area of surplus. Then there are also some deficits. Our maintenance accounts, where we've been trying to take care of our buildings, purchasing the products that we need to be able to sanitize them properly. And also under the nursing area, we've been trying to purchase all the equipment that we can that we may be needing when we go back to school. Then I want to flip to now the revenue side of our budget. So with our budget right now, we have revenues exceeding my budget by about let me just say $349,000. And there are a few areas where those numbers are coming from. One of them is received an additional allotment for Chapter 70, greater than what I had budgeted based off of the governor's numbers in January of 2000, 2019. We also received some additional funds for regional transportation. There was an additional allotment for that, so that made a difference to us. And we also received a significant amount for homeless transportation last year. So all of those mean that my revenues that came in are greater than I expected. And also in addition to the net metering agreement, that did come in about $73,000 higher than what I had budgeted. And we've discussed maybe increasing that, but the problem is we just don't know if that plan could ever go down. And I ask the question every year, what is your expectation the following year for generation, and are there any planned outages? And if that happened for some reason other than being planned, we just wouldn't have the capacity to rebound from that. So that's why I'm always really cautious with that number. And I haven't deviated from being cautious. So with all of those numbers taken into account, we will be returning about $700,000 back to our E&D at the end of this year. I mean, as we mentioned, this is a unique year, and it is what it is. And we just, fortunately, it's going to our E&D, so we will be able to make choices in the future based off of that. Are there any questions on that? No?
Okay.
All right. Well, I did want to say we would need to take a vote just to accept the closeout as presented.
Okay. All right. Can I have a motion from the committee, please?
So I'll make a motion that we accept the closeout as presented.
Is there a second?
This is Gordon. I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on it? Okay. Roll call. Eric?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Gordon?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Thank you for that. And then Chris, you had a follow-up question.
Yeah, I just want to thank Christine for managing the budget so well this year. It certainly was a challenging year. So I appreciate everything she does to keep that straight and clean for us. And I'm not sure where the extra revenue came in from the state and transportation and so forth, reimbursements and all, and that's fantastic. Maybe it's the governor, maybe it's our reps, but I appreciate them for that. My primary question was the revenue on the purchase agreement, the solar array. Do you happen to know what the total revenue on the year was? And if we do, I think we should send a thank you for that arrangement, because it seems to be very significant every year, and it actually seems to be increasing in the revenue we're getting from it.
It has worked out quite well for us each year. Let me just see. I do have the exact amount of the revenue on that. From the net metering agreement, $323,000 is what was generated from that.
Wow. Yeah, I think that deserves a motion for a thank you letter again for that arrangement.
Okay, we can have one sent to them. Is the committee in agreement on that? Anybody opposed to that? Okay, certainly. Good idea, Chris. We'll do that.
And the only other thing I had is we would need to renew the vote for the single signature signers. We have 4 on that committee, and I need 3 at any one time to sign. And presently it's Eric Crone, Laura Tilton, Chris Eklund, and Ed Deschanel.
I am the single signer for Kingston, and I was re-upped the other night for it, so I'm happy to continue doing it for the region as well.
And I'm fine continuing. I'm right around the corner, so it's easy for me to zip up there.
Yep.
Thank
As
you.
well for Chris.
Ed, are you okay with that as well?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I can do it.
Okay. Lisa, do we need a motion for that?
Yes, I believe you do.
Okay. Could I have a motion from the committee?
I'll make a motion that myself and Laura, Chris, and Ed continue to be the on the single signer subcommittee.
I'll second it.
Okay, very good. Roll call. Eric?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Ed?
Yep.
Chris?
Yes.
Gordon?
Yes.
And myself, it's a yes. Thank you. All right, very good. Thanks a bunch, Christine.
Thank you.
Okay. Assistant Superintendent Ryan, we could have your update, please.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of quick points. You recall that in June we surveyed at the end of our remote learning experience to try to capture how staff, students, and families experienced it, and then build some next steps based on that data. So I can share with you quickly what some of the takeaways are. So I'm going to share my screen. If you're not viewing the school committee meeting, I'll just talk through some of it as well. The important points are we had pretty good responses from very good responses from staff and parents. We had nearly consistent numbers of responses in April and in June, which was very helpful. We had fewer students participate in the survey at the end of the year. We were still able to get some good data, but our seniors had already graduated, so perhaps that's some of the reason for the lower number of responses among students. So in the data, staff identified what their top 3 highly effective strategies were, and I'll talk about these for just a minute because it's also true of what parents and students identified. People appreciated platforms like Google Classroom to organize learning, grade level or department level collaboration time. Parents and teachers appreciated the communication from the school. And I included the 4th top 3 highly effective strategy because parents and staff both identified synchronous Google Meets with small groups as an effective educational strategy. So we heard a lot of feedback, I think, locally and nationally, that large scale synchronous meetings can be tricky with a large number of students. That was revealed in our data, but another piece that was under that was that smaller group meetings are effective strategies. So I didn't want that to be lost in the data that was reported by teachers here in Silver Lake and from our families. The staff identified what their needs were. So they asked for more accountability beyond credit, no credit. They wanted some more professional development on how to create screencasts, how to engage students, and how to support students with accommodations and modifications. So those were some needs that they identified. And in some of the parental feedback, there was very positive feedback for the organization of work by teachers. Many parents spoke about the efforts of teachers for their individualized updates about how students did, how accessible many staff were. So that was borne out in the data. And for the appreciation for Steve Pello and the entire tech team for the Chromebook distribution, where over 1,000 devices went out to students in the district. When I get to next steps, so just to kind of round out what the takeaways are, anytime we survey, we think it's really important to share back some of the data and then say, well, what are we going to do different based on the information we collected? So we're committed to sharing more resources for staff about effective teaching and learning. I'll show you that teaching and learning site that is under construction right now. We're going to also collect best practices and showcase those on our site. We're working with the curriculum coordinators, the program directors, and department chairs to do that. And through the tech department, we've identified and we're going to move forward with a quality screencasting tool, which is known as WeVideo for 2021. And also we've purchased an anti-bullying and social emotional learning curriculum to support our students K-6 when they return. So that was all based on the data that came back from our survey. So here's really quickly what the teaching and learning website will look like based on what was requested from staff. There'll be K-12 teaching and learning resources, like I just talked about, WeVideo, support for Google Classroom, and also Parent Square. There are K-6 teaching and learning resources, and also the coordinators are collecting from their teachers over the course of July their best practice experiences with teaching and learning tools, and we'll be able to focus on those for 2021 and showcase what teachers found success with. So those are all big pieces of data from our survey, some next steps, and a little bit of our work with the teaching and learning site, which we hope to have up in late July, so that teachers can, if they choose, be as prepared as possible for the 3 scenarios the state is asking us to be ready for, which would include in-person, hybrid, or remote learning in September.
Wonderful. Can I ask the committee for any comments or questions? Okay. That was very detailed. That was great. Could I ask if we haven't already received a copy of that survey, that presentation? Could the committee get one, please?
Absolutely, Paul. I will share that out so everybody has it. And if you review it and have further questions, we're happy to follow up with those as well.
Great. Thank you. And now Jill, Superintendent of Schools, I'll hand it over to you.
Jill, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. The first item we'll talk about is a resolution that is being considered and has been supported by several school districts. And I'm going to turn it back over to Paula to tell you a little bit more about that as it relates to the funding of schools.
Yeah, and thank you for that. There was an article in the Boston Globe last weekend, I think it was, that talked about, I think it's over 100 schools now that have issued a resolution to Governor Baker and the powers that be in the state to actually demand, I guess I would say, that all of the funding needs around the pandemic from a school perspective are supported by the state. We have a copy of this resolution. I think it's been distributed to the committee. And I would put out there for the committee, I believe it's something the committee should consider issuing from our committee in support of this resolution. Correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, I believe the Kingston Elementary School may have approved this earlier this week and are participating in the resolution.
That is correct. We did vote on that the other night.
Yeah. So I don't know if anybody has any comments from the resolution, the article that was in the Globe, or any other thoughts. If so, if you certainly want to share them with us. And if the committee is willing to make a motion for us to participate in this and put our school district up there in support of, demanding funding, which we absolutely need, I would take that motion from the committee.
Paula, I'll make a motion on that.
Okay, thank you, Ed.
And I'll second it.
Thank you, Eric. Any further comments or questions? I know some people might be looking at the material now. Okay, seeing none, could I do a roll call? Eric?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Gordon?
Yes.
And myself is a yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Some other news in terms of funding. We have applied for the Esser Grants, which is in line with our Title I numbers. Our allocation is based similar to the way that our allocation is determined for Title I, is how it was described to us in terms of how much each town would receive. And this grant can be used similar to the ways that our Title I grant, our Title II grant has been used in the past. But it also can be used in terms of training, technology, or safety equipment. Now, for Silver Lake, it's approximately $58,000. And so we have applied for this grant, and that certainly will be helpful in helping to purchase additional items that we may need as we begin to put forward an in-person, a remote, or a hybrid plan. As we anticipate there could be many things that may be necessary based upon the circumstances. So the good news about the grant is that it is flexible in its uses, and so that is helpful to us. The press release at the end of June from the Department of Education that was shared with the community noted a $225 per student allocation to schools, and at that time we weren't certain how that allocation, what that would mean, whether it would be through the form of an application or whether it would be provided directly to the schools. It has since come to our attention that the allocation will not be coming to the schools, that we need to work with our municipalities because Plymouth County had applied directly for federal funds. So there is a group of superintendents from Plymouth County who have asked for a meeting with Tom O'Brien, the treasurer, to help clarify what that means. There seemed to be some confusion or a belief that we would be getting an additional $225 per student. And so it was obviously disappointing to school districts in Plymouth County to find out that that may not be the case. And number two, similar to the CARES Act funds that we had heard about, we would need to work with municipalities to try to get a hold of that money in order to support student needs for the fall. So we're looking for further clarification on that, but I wanted to mention that to you. But that's where we stand right
Jill,
now.
can I add to that?
Mm-hmm.
I had a phone call from Tom O'Brien earlier today about something else, but he did bring that up. And he did say that he's going to be talking to the superintendents, but he said basically in a nutshell, the way that the state pulled in the money, they haven't dispersed as much money as or percentages as Plymouth did in phase one. So their $225 per student still has to go through the CARES Act. It still has to qualify. It has to be an unbudgeted expense, and it has to fall within the guidelines of the CARES Act. So Tom said that the county's perspective on this is that $225 per student is already in the allocations to the towns. And if you go to the PlymouthCountyCares.org website, you'll see that phase 2 and 3 have been updated. Phase 1 was based on population. Phase 2 is based on COVID percentages. And phase 3, I forget what phase 3 is on, but it's somewhat equal for Kingston. We went from 580,000 in phase 1 to about 520 in phase 2, and I think about the same in phase 3. And he basically said that if the town wants to allocate $400 per student towards education, they can do that. But again, it has to go through the same process, just like the state would with that $225. It would still have to go through a process, and it would have to be a qualifying expense, and you'd have to prove that you've already made that purchase to get that funding. They're not just writing a check to the school district for $225. So the same with the Plymouth County. As long as our towns didn't want to take more of that money. Now, again, the district, Silver Lake, is different than our elementary districts because we would have to go through the towns as well. Kathy Lenatra did put through an amendment on the budget bill to get us, I forget what the amount was, 130,000 or something along those lines in the latest budget. That's waiting for the governor's signature. So it's already passed the House and the Senate. So once the governor signs it, then we would be getting that money for Silver Lake. If we need additional funding beyond that, which we probably will, then we would have to coordinate through our member towns to make those purchases. So that's something that we may need to, from the towns, it seems like it's an easier process, at least for Kingston. I don't know if Christine wants to say anything, but for Kingston, that money would just go through a specific account, I guess, for purchase, and then the reimbursement goes to the town. So the district, the region is definitely different. So I don't see that we're going to be getting any additional funding over that, comparable to that 225, but each of our member towns has a significant chunk of money that we can pull from, in addition to the 130,000 that we're getting through the state budget. That's the only update I have. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Eric. So the next thing, I didn't know if Christine wanted to add anything. I'll pause for a moment.
I do not have any clarification to add regarding how that will actually work for the region.
All right, thank you, Christine. I also wanted to thank Christine for preparing and submitting our 1/12 budget, which we have been notified has been accepted, approved at the state level. In terms of other items, the town, I was recently asked by Chief Douglas, who inquired about the use of fields for a potential town meeting. The date of the town meeting was not provided at the time of the inquiry. It later came to our attention that the proposed date of town meeting, I believe, was August 8th, which is the rain date for graduation. And so I wanted to bring this up to school committee this evening. In addition to the fields, they would use some of our bathrooms. The only foreseeable problem is the fact that this is the rain date for graduation. Michaela, do you have a time for the rain date of graduation? I didn't see that in your notice.
I do. It's the same time, 6 p.m.
6 p.m. So it would be in the evening. The problem may be for families who are participating in graduation during the day to to participate in town meeting that same night. It does not appear to be a problem in terms of traffic, but it may be a problem in terms of cleanup and disinfecting between events. Is that correct, Michaela?
Yeah, those are my big concerns. And the ceremony starts at 6 p.m., but obviously there's hours of setup prior. We line the graduates up prior to 6 p.m. So, we would need a few hours of time beforehand to have everything ready to go. My big concern is having enough time between events to make sure that everything is disinfected and re-sanitized before the next group comes in. So that's my big hesitation.
And I know that Matt was going to be meeting with some people today to take a look at different options, but I have not heard back from him yet.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard from him either, but we can briefly discuss there are other fields that might be available and conducive to it if we could maybe pick two separate points in a different field away from where graduation festivities will be.
Okay. Chris, did you have a question or a comment there?
Yeah, I have two questions. Thank you, Paula. One, maybe to Michaela, in terms of conversation with Chief Douglas. How are our fields special, I guess is my first question, versus Kingston Fields? And I did listen to the Selectmen's meeting, and they were talking about tents and hardtop for handicap. I think the conversation went to the track for chairs and handicap, which doesn't sound like it's the right surface for chairs, but why our fields, I guess, is my big question.
I'm not sure. I can't answer that. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure if they were just looking for size or I don't know.
One of the things that was originally asked when the town moderator had spoken with me on the original date, one of her concerns was the ability to use the press box and to seat people in the bleachers and then the community on the field for sound. But that was the original request. That was not the request as it was relayed to me for the August 8th proposal and what they were looking at.
Yeah, no, my understanding was they wanted shade from the summer heat, obviously, and they wanted some hardtop. It sounded like they didn't want the stadium seating. And I remember Janet specifically wanting stadium seating, as you're saying, Jill, for the PA system. So I'm not sure on that one. The second question I have, Paula, is for Michaela again. Triple E has been found in the state. There's a smirk. Are we at all concerned with a 6 o'clock time on either night? I don't know how long you plan this event to go, I guess is my question.
We're going to go as quick as we can, and I will work with Kingston Board of Health to make sure we are safe, and hopefully we get the thumbs up for a little bug spray, and we'll go quick.
Perfect. I'm glad you're aware of that. Thank you.
Good.
Murder hornets, you know, Sharknadoes. We're going to be ready for anything. Those kids will get their diplomas.
I also know.
Michaela, is it possible we could reach out to Plymouth County Mosquito Control and have them spray before?
That's a great idea, Gordon. Yeah, we have a long list of to-dos in preparation for graduation, and mosquitoes are on our to-do list.
Okay.
Thanks, Gordon.
Okay.
Also,
Now-
I just want to point out that Carl Pike is in the chat, and he has noted that the meeting should be over by noon.
I would argue that that is way too optimistic, Carl. I'm laughing right now.
We'll see. We'll see.
Okay. All righty. Well, thank you for that. Jill, I'll hand it back over to you.
Okay, so we wanted you to just be aware that these are some of the discussions that are taking place. I also, felt a need to advocate on behalf of our graduates and making sure that nothing interferes with their graduation that is within our control. That's obviously very important to us and to our families and students. So we're gonna do everything we can to have a beautiful day for our graduates. A COVID-19 update, I guess the biggest thing I can say here is that in some areas we are having some difficulty with safety equipment and technology given the demands placed upon these orders. As you know, the principals were asked as soon as, even prior to the guidance coming out, to begin to work with their nurses and the tech staff to determine what we would need and to begin making those purchases. And to the best of their ability, they have begun to do so. The reentry plan is underway. We have our marching orders from the state to have 3 plans for reentry, 1 in person at 3 feet apart, 1 remote, and 1 hybrid. And what hybrid means remains to be seen. One of the anticipated models is for some of our students to return and to rotate either days on, days off, weeks on, weeks off. Another potential model is the concept of elementary students returning to school and secondary students, or some secondary students, remaining remote for those students that are more able to access the material independently. But also recognizing that regardless of age, there are some students who, and many students, I hesitate to say all students learn best by working with their teachers and with their fellow classmates and the social emotional components that go along with all of this. So there's a lot of unknowns with regards to hybrid and what that may or may not look like. We are going to be compiling the expectations, those things that are basically regulatory versus guidance, and then working with our principals to put that into 3 formats for the working groups to then begin to look at what the finer details in terms of what would work and what wouldn't. Obviously, setting expectations in terms of what effective teaching and learning will look like in each of those environments. And perhaps one of the biggest anxieties that I can foresee for our particular district, because many schools are in this very same predicament that we're in now, and I have every faith in our ability to work together to come up with some wonderful creative solutions. And our principals have been working on, looking at what it would mean if we had to be 6 feet apart in the classroom, what it would look like if we needed to be 3 feet apart in the classroom, how we could use spaces creatively to take care of things like lunch and to make sure that the distancing is even greater. I think one of the biggest challenges that we are going to face is whether or not there will be, right now the recommendation is 3 feet on the buses. And so I had reached out to the bus company today, and they had given us some information about the number of students that we can fit on those buses. It's a bigger issue for elementary because we fit more elementary students onto a bus, but we're looking at, perhaps between 24 to 26 students on a bus. We are a regional district, so that also adds to the complexity of what we need to provide for our students. And then we also have the regulations that pertain to elementary school students. So some of our parents will prefer to drive students to school, but again, we also need to look at what that looks like and what kind of flexibility we will need with drop-off times and things of that nature, because our schools are not designed necessarily for that kind of amount of individual drop-offs at a time. So that's one of the challenges that we're going to be facing, and that could interfere with our hopes of all students returning in the fall in the traditional sense that we, have come to know and expect of our schools. But it's something that we're aware of. It's something that we will work with the state and we will advocate for. It's something that we need to get information to the Department of Education because they have also committed to trying to advocate on behalf of schools. We also need to remove furniture from classrooms in order to fit more students, in order to make it a safer atmosphere. So we need to consider things such as storage, things of that nature. So it's a pretty complicated process, but we are beginning that work, and we were notified today that all 3 plans will be submitted to the state by July 31st, which is an interesting change because we had anticipated getting another set of guidance from the state probably in August. So that changed just today. And we also recognize that any and all pieces of this could change at any moment due to the uncertain nature of the virus and the regulations. So again, we're just trying to prepare for almost any possibility or eventuality. And we ask that you stay with us as we try to work through this and recognize that what we may tell you today could change tomorrow. And so we'll try to keep you updated in our progress. We have 2 working groups assembled, one for secondary and one for elementary. And we have done our best to make that working group a manageable size because we meet remotely, but also to have a variety of voices, including parents and secondary students, and teachers and nurses and facility people, so that we really have a wide variety of voices. And in addition, we will also survey once again. Originally, we had planned to survey in August. In light of the commissioner's announcement today about a July 31st, we will probably survey earlier because we want to know the intent of parents, whether or not they're intending to send their students back to school, whether they intend to take advantage of transportation, to ask them for additional feedback or concerns prior to the submission of the plan. So it kind of really pushed up our deadline. It took a whole month away from us, but we're all here tonight and we're smiling. So we're going to be, we're going to get through it. And it may mean working a little bit more quickly than we had anticipated. So that's the reentry plan. I'm happy to try to answer any questions, but if not, I can move on to the vote regarding the lunch program. But I know it's a lot to absorb, so I wanted to stop and pause there in case you had questions.
Absolutely. I'm going to open it up to the committee members first, and then I have just a couple of comments as well. Any committee members have any questions or comments?
Paula, I have a question.
Sure, go right ahead.
Sorry, I'm not on the thing, so you don't know. Jill, thanks for sharing all that information. That was great. I have two questions. So the bus situation, would if that goes through where they want the separation on the bus, would we be adding buses? And is that something that we've discussed with the bus company of what the financial impact would be with that?
So she mentioned adding a fourth tier and getting us a quote for that in her response. She mentioned some other ideas such as working with the state to, increase the amount of walking required of students to help lower the number of students on buses, things like that. But that's, that in terms of the social distancing on the bus, I think what will be helpful is to get that price and to get that price to the state so that they know what regional schools are up against in terms of funding busing with social distancing. I think that's going to be critical, and the commissioner has called for that kind of information of what are the obstacles that we face, because there is a big push. There is a big push to try to help schools allow all students to return to school in some capacity. But the cost of that to do safely is something that the commissioner and the state needs to be aware of. And each school district is different in terms of their needs.
Thanks. And my other question was, I do agree with you that we would probably see an increase of drop-offs, and other committee members can chime in. The drop-off situation without what's going on is a nightmare over in that area. So it definitely needs to be looked at, even if we didn't have this situation. There's a ton of cars moving around on there. There's no flow. Like you said, the parking lot, the way it's designed is terrible to drop off.
So it's just one of the things that we're going to have to consider, and maybe one of those things that we have to think outside the box and be a little more flexible in terms of the scheduling of drop-off and time on learning in particular.
Mike, can I ask, do you have our
what, Paul?
stop at 7 that was indicated to join the call?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Do you have to get off do you have to get out of this meeting by 7:30?
7:30, I have to get off the meeting, yes, unfortunately.
Mike?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Mike, but I think Paula is frozen.
Okay. Yeah, I do have to leave at 7:30. I apologize.
Okay, I'm sorry, my computer froze there for a moment. A couple of things I want to bring to the committee's attention. It's 7:16. We have Mike for 14 more minutes. Hold any public questions on this topic right now, not.
Paula, you're breaking up. We can't hear you at all.
Eric, should we move to the vote to accept the donation to the lunch program so that for the sake of time while we have enough people to vote and hopefully.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so we had a donation to our lunch program, and an anonymous donation of $584.50, which has allowed us to pay off all of our lunch debt for Silver Lake Regional Middle School, Silver Lake Regional High School. And the school nutrition director has offered to send a note of thanks. So I'm looking for a motion to vote to accept with gratitude this donation.
I'll make that motion. If anybody else would like to second it.
Second, Chris.
All right. Do we need to take a roll call vote, or can I just do a regular vote?
I think you can just do a regular vote for the matter of time.
Okay, so is anybody against this? No? Anybody abstained? All right, all those in favor? Aye?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. The summer lunch program, I wanted to say thank you to Megan Aronholtz for coordinating our summer meals program for students this summer. This is made possible through USDA waivers. And I think that brings me to the end. I don't know if you have any questions about any of those items, but I also know that time is short, so I wanted to make sure we got in the vote.
Sure. So do we need to take another vote about the summer lunch program or no?
No, we're all set there.
Okay.
That was just a thank you and an update as to how we're able to pay for summer meals.
Okay, so before we move on, are there any questions from the committee?
Eric, I want Chris.
Yep.
Jill, do you need anything from the committee regarding your reentry plans? I don't think we have a meeting scheduled before month end to bounce things off us, or is it's yours and your rubber stamp and you get to go run with this thing?
So as far as I know, it does not require school committee approval. However, you may want to meet with us prior to the submission to finalize any last minute concerns prior to submission. Perhaps end of July, early August might be something the committee wants to consider.
Thank you.
I mean, it's impossible for me to anticipate how things could change and what may be required because it changes regularly, unfortunately.
Right. Well, I think we can always call a meeting after this. It looks like Paula's back. And
Yeah, sorry about that. I lost my internet for some reason momentarily.
no worries. So Jill is finished. So I think we're just moving on to, well, Chris had asked whether we need another meeting before the end of the month, but I think we could probably hold off. And if we need to call one, I would think we could do that at any time.
Sure.
We're at new business.
Okay, I will throw out there two things. The SAFER committee, the subcommittee had agreed to work with the administration on that plan a bit. So I think SAFER can pick up some of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do apologize. I lost you folks right as I was saying, now we have 10 minutes to go and we still need to have an executive session.
So can we end now and go into executive session?
I believe so. I think we're going to need to table the rest of the agenda until our next meeting, unfortunately.
So
Jill,
I'll make a motion.
I apologize. Do we need to vote the donation?
We did vote it.
Okay, sorry, I missed that.
Yep. So I'll make a motion that we go into executive session only to return for the purpose of adjourning our regular meeting.
I'll second that.
Chris.
Okay, I'm going to roll call. And thank you, everybody else for joining our meeting tonight. We truly appreciate it. Roll call, Eric?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Gordon?
Yes.
And myself is a yes. Did we do that okay, Lisa? We ended our current meeting and we're going into executive?
Yes, you're
All right.
fine. If you want to go over to the other link for the executive session, Mike, you'll have to dial in again.
Thank you. See you folks in a minute.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.